The psychology of becoming valuable. Why some people create wealth everywhere they go. Chapter 1. The day you stop chasing money. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded street, desperately trying to catch butterflies. The harder you run, the farther they seem to drift away. You chase one, then another, exhausting yourself until sunset. Yet, just a few feet away, someone sits quietly in a garden filled with flowers, and butterflies land on them effortlessly. Money behaves much the same way. Money is rarely chasing people who spend their lives chasing it. This sounds backward because we've been taught the opposite. Since childhood, we've heard a simple formula repeated so often that it feels like absolute truth. Work hard. Earn money. Then you'll finally be secure, happy, and free. But look around. Millions of people work incredibly hard. They wake before sunrise, sacrifice weekends, juggle multiple jobs, and still feel trapped. They aren't lazy. They aren't careless. Yet every month feels like starting over. If hard work alone created wealth, the hardest working people in society would be the richest. They aren't. The uncomfortable truth is that effort and wealth are connected, but not in the way most people believe. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards value. That single realization changes everything. Imagine two people spending 8 hours working. One spends the day moving heavy boxes in a warehouse. The other spends the day negotiating a business deal that saves a company $10 million. Both worked 8 hours. Both were exhausted. But the marketplace values those hours very differently. Money isn't measuring how tired you are. It's measuring the value your work creates for others. This isn't always fair. It isn't always equal. But it is the invisible rule that quietly governs nearly every financial outcome. Most people spend years trying to become more productive. Very few spend those years becoming more valuable. And those two paths lead to very different destinations. Here's another misconception that quietly keeps people stuck. We often confuse income with wealth. Someone earning $200,000 a year may appear successful on the outside. They drive an expensive car, wear luxury watches, and post pictures from exotic vacations. But appearances rarely tell the full story. Behind those images might be overwhelming debt, constant anxiety, and a lifestyle that requires every paycheck just to survive. Now imagine another person. They earn significantly less. They own their home outright. They invest consistently. They have no consumer debt. Their expenses are low, and their peace of mind is high. Who is wealthier? The answer isn't obvious until you stop looking at income and start looking at freedom. Income is money that comes in. Wealth is the ability to choose how you live. One buys appearances. The other buys time. And time is the one currency that never replenishes itself. Every wealthy life, in its deepest sense, is really a life with more choices. This raises an uncomfortable question. Why do so many intelligent people remain financially stuck? We've all met them. The brilliant engineer who struggles with money. The gifted artist who never learns to charge what they're worth. The straight-A student buried in debt. The professor who understands economics but can't build personal wealth. Intelligence alone is enough. Knowledge is only valuable when it changes behavior. Knowing how investing works doesn't matter if fear keeps you from investing. Understanding negotiation doesn't matter if you're afraid to ask for a raise. Reading dozens of business books changes nothing if you never solve a meaningful problem for another human being. Success doesn't reward information. It rewards application. There has never been a time in history when more knowledge was available for free. Yet financial anxiety continues to rise. Why? Because information is no longer scarce. Execution is. The gap between knowing and doing has become one of the most expensive gaps in modern life. There's another game happening beneath everything we've discussed. A game most people never realize they're playing. It's the invisible game. On the surface, it looks like people are paid for what they do. But underneath, they're paid for something far more important. The marketplace constantly asks for silent questions. Can you solve difficult problems? Can people trust you? Can you communicate clearly? Can you create results consistently? Every opportunity, every promotion, every partnership, every investment quietly revolves around these questions. Degrees matter less than trust. Talent matters less than reliability. Knowledge matters less than usefulness. The invisible game isn't about proving how smart you are. It's about becoming someone whose presence makes other people's lives easier, businesses stronger, or futures brighter. When you become that person, money often follows naturally, not because you're chasing it, but because you become difficult to replace. Think about the people who seem to attract opportunities wherever they go. It rarely happens by accident. They've built reputations that travel ahead of them. People recommend them before they ask. Doors open before they knock. Clients return before they advertise. To an outsider, it looks like luck. In reality, it's accumulated value. So perhaps the goal isn't to spend your life asking, how can I make more money? Perhaps the better question is, how can I become more valuable tomorrow than I am today? That single shift changes the direction of your attention. Instead of obsessing over your bank balance, you begin investing in your skills. Instead of competing for opportunities, you become someone opportunities compete for. Instead of hoping someone notices your potential, you deliberately create undeniable value. Money is a consequence. Value is the cause. And causes are always more powerful than consequences. As you continue through this audiobook, you'll discover that wealth isn't simply built in bank accounts. It's first built in habits, in beliefs, in relationships, in reputation, and most importantly, in identity. Because the day you stop chasing money is often the day money finally begins to find you. Chapter 2. The Hidden Story Running Your Financial Life. In the last chapter, we uncovered a surprising truth. Money doesn't primarily flow toward the people who chase it. It flows toward those who create value. But that discovery raises a deeper question. If becoming more valuable is the answer, why don't more people do it? Why do intelligent, hard-working people hesitate to ask for better opportunities, delay investing in themselves, or settle for less than they're capable of earning? The answer isn't found in your resume. It isn't found in your education. And it certainly isn't found in your bank account. It's found in a story you've been carrying for most of your life. A story so familiar that you rarely notice it's there. Because the most powerful stories aren't the ones we tell others. They're the ones we silently tell ourselves. Long before you earned your first paycheck, someone was teaching you about money, not through formal lessons, but through everyday moments. Perhaps you overheard your parents whispering about bills late at night. Maybe you heard someone say, money doesn't grow on trees. Perhaps every trip to the grocery store came with reminders about what your family couldn't afford. Or maybe money was never discussed at all, becoming a mysterious subject wrapped in silence and anxiety. Children don't analyze these experiences. They absorb them. A child doesn't think, my parents are under financial stress because of circumstances beyond their control. Instead, the child quietly concludes, money creates stress. Or, there's never enough. Or, rich people are selfish. Or, people like us don't become wealthy. These aren't facts. They're beliefs. And beliefs, repeated often enough, begin to feel like reality. By adulthood, many people aren't making financial decisions based on the present. They're reacting to emotional lessons they learned decades earlier. The past quietly negotiates with the future. Imagine your mind as the operating system inside a computer. Every belief you've accepted about money becomes part of its programming. Most people spend their lives upgrading the hardware. They work longer hours, learn new skills, start businesses, take second jobs. But if the operating system still contains outdated code, every new opportunity gets filtered through old beliefs. It's like pouring clean water into a cracked bucket. No matter how much enters, something keeps leaking away. You may earn more money, yet somehow your savings disappear. You receive a promotion. Your lifestyle expands just as quickly. You start a business, but hesitate to charge what your work is worth. The problem isn't always your strategy. Sometimes it's your programming. This brings us to one of the most important differences in financial psychology: scarcity and abundance. Most people misunderstand these words. They assume scarcity means having little money, and abundance means having a lot. But that's not what they truly describe. Scarcity is a way of thinking. Abundance is also a way of thinking. Someone with millions can still live in scarcity, constantly worried, constantly comparing, constantly afraid of losing everything. Meanwhile, someone starting with almost nothing can operate from abundance, believing that skills can grow, relationships can multiply, opportunities can be created. The difference isn't the size of the wallet, it's the size of the perspective. Scarcity whispers, there isn't enough. Abundance asks, how can I create more? Scarcity says, if someone else succeeds, there's less left for me. Abundance understands that value isn't a limited resource. One person's success doesn't prevent yours. It often creates new opportunities for everyone involved. Scarcity focuses on protecting. Abundance focuses on creating. And creators almost always outperform protectors over the long run. Think about two people walking into the same room full of strangers. The first person thinks, no one here will care about what I have to offer. The second thinks, I wonder whose life I can improve today. Both entered the same room, but they entered with completely different identities. One is looking for rejection. The other is looking for a contribution. Guess who leaves with more opportunities? Now, let's explore something almost everyone experiences but few recognize. Emotional spending. Most purchases aren't logical. They're emotional. We tell ourselves we're buying a new phone because we need better features. But perhaps we're really buying the feeling of being current. We purchase designer clothing because it lasts longer. Yet, maybe we're purchasing confidence. Some people collect expensive watches. Others collect luxury cars. Others upgrade homes they don't need. The object changes. The emotion remains the same. We're often buying relief. Relief from insecurity. Relief from comparison. Relief from loneliness. Relief from feeling not enough. This doesn't mean enjoying nice things is wrong. There's nothing inherently wrong with success or comfort. The danger begins when possessions become substitutes for inner peace. Because no purchase can permanently solve an emotional problem. Temporary excitement eventually fades. Then the mind searches for another purchase, another upgrade, another reward. It's a cycle that quietly steals wealth while promising happiness. Perhaps the most convincing voice holding people back doesn't sound emotional at all. It sounds rational. It sounds responsible. It sounds like logic. You might hear thoughts like, now isn't the right time. I should wait until everything is perfect. The economy is uncertain. Someone else is probably more qualified. Maybe next year. At first glance, these sound wise. But beneath them often lives something much older. Fear. Fear has learned to wear the clothes of logic. Because if fear admitted its true identity, we'd question it. Instead, it disguises itself as careful planning. It convinces talented people to postpone opportunities, to avoid difficult conversations, to never launch the business, to never ask for the promotion, to never write the book, to never invest in themselves. The safest decision often feels intelligent in the moment, but over years, safety can become the most expensive choice of all. Growth has always required uncertainty. Every meaningful opportunity arrives before certainty does. This leads us to perhaps the most powerful idea in this chapter. Your identity determines your income, not immediately, but eventually. Consider someone who secretly believes, I'm just not good with money. Notice what happens. They avoid learning about investing. They ignore budgets. They postpone financial decisions. Every action strengthens the original belief. Soon they say, see, I knew I wasn't good with money. The belief creates the behavior. The behavior creates the evidence. The evidence strengthens the belief. It's a loop. Now imagine someone whose identity is different. They quietly believe, I'm becoming someone who creates value. That person reads, practices, learns, negotiates, builds relationships, takes calculated risks, improves communication. Each small action reinforces who they believe they are becoming. Eventually, the outside world catches up with the inside story. Income rises because identity changed first, not the other way around. The world rarely pays you according to your potential. It pays you according to the person you consistently show yourself to be. So before you ask how to earn more, pause for a moment. Ask yourself a different question. What hidden story have I been living? Is it the story that money is scarce? That success belongs to other people? That asking for more is selfish? That you're always one mistake away from failure? Or is it time to write a new story? One where value can always be created, skills can always be learned, confidence can always be built, and wealth is no longer something you chase, but something that naturally grows as you become the person capable of creating it. Because every financial transformation begins long before the first dollar appears. It begins the moment you stop believing the old story and start living a new one. Chapter 3, The Value Equation. In the previous chapter, we discovered that before your income changes, your identity must change. The hidden story you believe about yourself quietly shapes every financial decision you make. But once you begin rewriting that story, a new question naturally appears. How do I actually become more valuable? The answer isn't complicated, but it is often overlooked. After studying entrepreneurs, artists, business leaders, creators, consultants, and professionals across countless industries, one simple pattern appears again and again. Income isn't random. It follows an equation, not a mathematical equation, a human one. Value times visibility times trust equals income. Miss one part of this equation, and your financial growth slows. Master all three, and opportunities begin appearing where they once seemed impossible. Let's break it apart. The first part is value. Value is your ability to solve problems. The larger the problem you solve, the more valuable you become. Think about a doctor who saves a life, an engineer who designs safer bridges, a teacher who changes how a child sees the world, a software developer who saves thousands of businesses hundreds of hours every year. None of them are paid simply because they worked. They're rewarded because their work creates meaningful change. The marketplace is constantly asking one silent question: whose life becomes better because you exist? The clearer your answer, the greater your value. This is why learning never stops paying dividends. Every new skill expands the number of problems you can solve. Better communication, leadership, sales, negotiation, writing, listening, creativity. These aren't just skills. They're value multipliers. The mistake many people make is believing that value comes from collecting certificates. It doesn't. Value comes from creating results. The world doesn't reward what you know. It rewards what your knowledge allows other people to achieve. But here's where many talented people become frustrated. They become incredibly valuable, yet remain invisible. Imagine the greatest chef in the world. Every meal is extraordinary. Every recipe unforgettable. Every guest amazed. Now imagine that chef cooking alone inside an empty restaurant no one knows exists. How much income can they earn? Not because they lack talent, because no one knows they're there. This is where the second part of the equation becomes essential: visibility. Visibility is not vanity. It isn't showing off. It isn't becoming famous. Visibility simply means allowing the right people to discover the value you already possess. Many people secretly believe, if I'm good enough, people will find me. Sometimes they do. Most of the time, they don't. The world is filled with extraordinary people quietly waiting to be discovered. Unfortunately, opportunity rarely carries a flashlight. You must become visible. That might mean speaking up during meetings, sharing your ideas online, building meaningful relationships, publishing your work, teaching others, volunteering for important projects. Visibility is simply making your value easier to find. Think of two architects. The first is brilliant. He has incredible ideas but never shares them. He avoids networking. He never posts his projects. He assumes talent should speak for itself. The second architect may not be the absolute best, but she consistently shares her work. She explains her thinking. She connects with clients. She teaches. She writes. She becomes known. Years later, who receives the larger projects? Who earns more? Who builds a stronger reputation? The answer surprises many people, because the marketplace cannot reward value it cannot see. Being invisible protects your comfort, but it also limits your opportunities. This brings us to a fascinating comparison. Imagine two musicians. The first is a musical genius. Perfect technique. Extraordinary compositions. Years of training. Yet, Hardly anyone has heard their music. The second musician is simply good, not extraordinary. But millions know their songs. They perform regularly. They connect emotionally. People remember them. Who earns more? In today's world, the average creator with influence often outperforms the unknown genius. Not because talent doesn't matter, but because talent without visibility rarely creates widespread impact. This isn't unfair. It's simply reality. People cannot appreciate gifts they've never encountered, which means part of becoming valuable is learning to communicate your value. Yet, visibility alone still isn't enough. Some people become famous. Some even attract millions of followers. But businesses still hesitate to work with them. Customers don't buy. Investors walk away. Why? Because visibility creates attention. But attention alone doesn't create income. The final piece of the equation is trust. Trust is what transforms attention into opportunity. Think about your closest friend. If they recommend a restaurant, you probably believe them. If a complete stranger recommends the same restaurant, you hesitate. The difference isn't information. It's trust. Every financial decision is ultimately an emotional decision. People aren't simply buying products. They're buying certainty. They're buying confidence. They're buying the belief that choosing you is a safe decision. This is why trust compounds. Each promise you keep strengthens it. Each problem you solve reinforces it. Each honest conversation builds another brick. Eventually, your reputation begins speaking before you do. People recommend you even when you're not in the room. That's when opportunity starts arriving without constant effort. Now, let's put the entire equation together. Imagine someone with incredible value, but no visibility. Their income stays limited. Now imagine someone with visibility, but no value. They attract attention, briefly. Eventually people leave. Now imagine someone with value and visibility, but no trust. People notice them. They admire them, but they don't invest. Only when all three work together does income begin to grow consistently. Value earns respect. Visibility creates opportunity. Trust converts opportunity into income. Remove any one of them, the equation weakens. This also explains something fascinating about human psychology. People often believe they're buying products. They're not. They're buying confidence. When someone hires a lawyer, they're buying confidence that their future is protected. When someone joins a fitness coach, they're buying confidence that change is possible. When someone purchases an expensive watch, they're often buying confidence in how they'll be perceived. Even luxury brands understand this principle. People rarely pay premium prices because an object costs more to produce. They pay because of what owning it says about them. Confidence has enormous economic value, and the most successful people learn an important distinction. They don't fake confidence. They create it. Competence creates confidence. Preparation creates confidence. Experience creates confidence. Keeping promises creates confidence. Confidence isn't pretending to know everything. It's trusting yourself to figure things out. That quiet certainty becomes magnetic. People naturally move toward those who make uncertainty feel manageable. As your confidence grows, something subtle begins to change. You stop asking, "Will someone give me a chance?" Instead, you begin asking, "How can I create so much value that people naturally want to work with me?" That's a completely different mindset. One depends on permission. The other depends on preparation. One waits. The other builds. And builders are rarely without opportunities for long. So remember the equation, not because it's clever, but because it reflects how the world quietly works. Become more valuable. Allow people to see that value. Earn their trust through consistent action. When those three forces begin working together, income stops feeling random. It becomes predictable. Because wealth is rarely created by luck alone. It is created when value becomes visible, and visibility becomes believable. In the next chapter, we'll discover how some people seem to attract opportunities wherever they go, not because they're the smartest in the room, but because they've learned how to become impossible to ignore. Chapter 4, Becoming Impossible to Ignore. By now, we've uncovered 3 powerful truths. First, money follows value more often than effort. Second, your financial life is shaped by the invisible story you believe about yourself. Third, Income grows when value, visibility, and trust work together. But there's still one question that separates those who remain overlooked from those who seem to attract opportunity wherever they go. Why do certain people walk into a room and instantly command attention? Not because they're loud, but because they matter. Why do some names keep appearing in conversations long after they've left? Why do opportunities seem to find them before everyone else? The answer isn't luck. It isn't talent alone. It's that they become impossible to ignore, not through arrogance, not through self-promotion, but by becoming so consistently valuable that ignoring them becomes more expensive than noticing them. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in success. Many people spend years trying to stand out. Very few spend years becoming outstanding. Those are not the same thing. One is about getting attention. The other is about deserving it. And over time, the second always wins. Imagine walking into a forest. Thousands of trees surround you. Most are healthy. Most are similar. But then you notice one towering above the rest. You don't notice it because it demanded your attention. You notice it because it became something impossible to overlook. People work the same way. Most careers become average because most people stop growing once they become comfortable. The marketplace rewards people who continue becoming rarer, not busier. Rarer. Every industry has common skills, and then it has rare skills. A salesperson knows how to sell. A rare salesperson knows how to listen so deeply that customers feel understood before a single product is mentioned. A manager knows how to assign tasks. A rare leader inspires people to perform beyond what they thought was possible. A writer knows grammar. A remarkable writer changes how people think. The greater your rarity, the smaller your competition. Think about the people everyone remembers. They aren't simply good at one thing. They combine multiple valuable skills into something difficult to replicate. Perhaps they're excellent at business and exceptional communicators. Maybe they're brilliant designers who also understand psychology, or skilled engineers who know how to lead teams. The more uncommon your combination of abilities becomes, the more irreplaceable you become. This is sometimes called your unique advantage, not because you're born different, because you intentionally developed a combination that few others have. The future doesn't belong to specialists alone, nor does it belong to generalists. It belongs to people who build rare combinations. There's another quality that quietly multiplies every skill you possess: charisma. The word itself makes some people uncomfortable. They imagine someone charming every room with effortless confidence, someone naturally outgoing, someone born with an irresistible personality. But true charisma has very little to do with being the loudest person in the room. In fact, some of the most charismatic people speak the least, because charisma isn't about impressing people. It's about making people feel important. Think back to the last conversation that stayed with you. Perhaps it wasn't because the other person said something extraordinary. Perhaps it was because they listened without interrupting. They remembered your name. They asked thoughtful questions. They made you feel seen. That feeling is unforgettable. People rarely remember every word you say, but they remember how they felt while speaking with you. Charisma creates emotional memory, and emotional memory creates opportunity. Imagine two business owners pitching the same idea. The first delivers perfect facts. Every statistic is correct. Every slide polished. But somehow, no one feels moved. The second tells a story, explains why the mission matters, looks people in the eye, speaks with conviction, listens carefully, leaves the audience inspired. Who receives the investment? Facts and form. Emotion moves. Charisma bridges the gap between the two. It allows your value to travel farther. Your knowledge becomes more persuasive. Your leadership becomes more trusted. Your ideas become more memorable. Charisma doesn't replace competence. It amplifies it. Many people avoid developing this skill because they've accepted a dangerous belief. I'm just not confident, as though confidence were something handed out at birth. But confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a skill, and like every skill, it can be learned. Think about riding a bicycle. The first attempt feels impossible. Your movements are awkward. You wobble. You fall. Then something changes. Not overnight, but through repetition. Eventually, what once required intense concentration becomes automatic. Confidence works exactly the same way. You become confident after doing difficult things, not before. This is where many people get trapped. They wait to feel confident before taking action. Successful people understand the opposite. Action creates confidence. Every difficult conversation, every presentation, every interview, every business proposal, every uncomfortable decision, each one adds another layer. Until one day, people call you naturally confident. They never see the hundreds of moments that built it. There's a useful way to think about confidence. Imagine it as a bank account. Every promise you keep to yourself is a deposit. You say you'll wake up early, and you do. Deposit. You decide to finish reading a book. You finish it. Deposit. You commit to exercising. You follow through. Deposit. Over time, these small acts create something powerful. Self-trust. And confidence is simply self-trust made visible. Likewise, every promise you repeatedly break becomes a withdrawal. Eventually, your own mind stops believing you. That's why discipline often looks like confidence from the outside, because disciplined people trust themselves. As your skills grow and your confidence deepens, something else begins to form, something far more valuable than a larger paycheck, your reputation. Most people think reputation is what others think about them. Not quite. Reputation is what people say about you when you're no longer in the room. It's the invisible resume that arrives before you do. Imagine someone mentioning your name during an important meeting. Would the room immediately associate your name with reliability, creativity, integrity, excellence, or uncertainty? Every interaction is quietly writing your reputation. Every email, every deadline, every conversation, every promise, every response when things go wrong. The remarkable thing about reputation is that it compounds, just like money, except often faster. Consider two professionals. Both earn the same salary today. The first consistently delivers excellent work, keeps promises, helps others succeed, treats everyone with respect. The second performs well only when someone is watching, misses deadlines, makes excuses, protects their own interests above everyone else's. 5 years later, their incomes are no longer similar. Why? Because reputation travels, recommendations spread, trust multiplies, opportunities move through networks long before they're advertised. By the time an opportunity reaches the public, someone with a strong reputation has often already been invited. That's the hidden power of compounding. Money compounds when invested. Reputation compounds every time someone tells another person you should work with them. No advertisement is stronger than genuine trust. No marketing campaign is more powerful than someone staking their own reputation on yours. That's why your reputation can become your greatest financial asset. Think of the most respected people in your field. Notice something. Their greatest advantage is rarely their talent anymore. It's their name. Their name opens doors. Their name shortens negotiations. Their name reduces uncertainty. Their name creates confidence before they even begin speaking. Years of consistent action transform their identity into a signal of quality, that available to anyone willing to think long-term, not overnight, not through shortcuts, but through thousands of ordinary moments handled extraordinarily well. Here's a question worth carrying with you. If your name appeared in a conversation tomorrow, what would it immediately represent? Because whether you realize it or not, everyone has a personal brand. Some build it intentionally. Most build it accidentally. The people who become impossible to ignore understand that every day is another chance to strengthen that reputation. Every skill learned, every promise kept, every person helped, every difficult conversation handled with integrity, every piece of value shared. These are not isolated actions. They're investments. And unlike trends, algorithms, or economic cycles, these investments continue paying dividends for years. So don't spend your life trying to become famous. Spend it becoming unforgettable. Become the person whose work speaks before you do, whose presence improves every room, whose integrity remains consistent whether anyone is watching or not. Because in a noisy world where everyone is demanding attention, The people who quietly become extraordinary are the ones the world cannot ignore. And once you become impossible to ignore, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop searching for opportunities. Opportunities begin searching for you. That is where we'll go next. In the following chapter, we'll explore what seems like luck from the outside, but is actually a predictable result of becoming the kind of person opportunities are naturally drawn toward. Chapter 5, The Wealth Magnet Effect. At this point in our journey, a pattern should be beginning to emerge. Money doesn't simply reward effort. It rewards value. Value becomes powerful when people can see it. Visibility becomes meaningful when it is supported by trust. Trust grows into reputation, and reputation eventually makes you impossible to ignore. But if that's true, why does it still seem as though some people are simply lucky? You know the stories. Someone meets the right person on a flight and lands their dream job. A small business owner receives a phone call that changes everything. An unknown writer publishes one article, and suddenly millions of people discover their work. An entrepreneur meets an investor at a coffee shop. To everyone watching from the outside, it looks like fate, the lucky break, the perfect timing, being in the right place at the right time. But here's what most people never see. They only notice the opportunity. They never see the years that made the opportunity possible. Because opportunities don't appear randomly. They appear where preparation has quietly been waiting. Imagine two people attending the same conference. They sit in the same audience, listen to the same speakers, walk through the same networking event. Toward the end of the evening, both strike up a conversation with the CEO of a growing company. The CEO mentions that they're looking for someone with experience leading digital marketing campaigns. The first person smiles politely. They've never studied marketing. They've never managed a campaign. The conversation ends there. The second person lights up. For the past 3 years, they've been learning marketing after work, running small campaigns for local businesses, building a portfolio that almost no one knew existed. That conversation turns into an interview. The interview becomes a job. Months later, everyone says, they were so lucky to meet the CEO. No, they were prepared to meet the CEO. The opportunity arrived for both people. Only one had built the ability to recognize it. Luck didn't create the opportunity. Preparation unlocked it. This is one of the greatest misconceptions about success. People believe opportunity creates readiness. In reality, readiness creates opportunity. Every skill you build today becomes a key. You don't know which door will unlock, but when the door finally appears, you'll either have a key or you won't. That's why preparation often feels unrewarding in the beginning. You're collecting keys for doors that haven't appeared yet, reading books that haven't solved today's problems, learning communication before anyone asks you to lead, practicing public speaking before anyone invites you on stage, writing consistently before anyone becomes your audience. The rewards aren't immediate, but when opportunity eventually arrives, the preparation suddenly becomes visible. People call it overnight success. You know it was years in the making. Think about an iceberg floating in the ocean. From above the surface, you only see a small portion. The massive foundation underneath remains hidden. Success works the same way. We celebrate promotions, book deals, business acquisitions, award ceremonies, viral videos, record-breaking sales. Those are the visible moments. But beneath them are thousands of invisible hours. The failed presentations, the rejected applications, the evenings spent studying while friends relaxed, the uncomfortable conversations, the mistakes, the revisions, the self-doubt, the quiet consistency. People see the reward. They rarely see the preparation, which is why success often looks like luck. There's an old saying that deserves a modern update. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. That's true, but there's another part. Preparation also changes what you notice. Imagine walking into a city you've never visited. If someone tells you to look for red cars, suddenly you begin seeing red cars everywhere. Not because more appeared, because your attention changed. Opportunity works in exactly the same way. The prepared mind notices possibilities that everyone else walks past. An entrepreneur sees an unsolved problem. A designer notices a better solution. A writer hears a story worth telling. An investor recognizes potential before everyone else does. The opportunity existed all along. Preparation simply trained them to see it. Your mind finds what has been taught to value. This explains why successful people often appear lucky. Think about someone who has built a strong reputation over 10 years. People constantly recommend them, invite them to projects, introduce them to influential people, offer them partnerships. Someone watching from the outside might think everything always works out for them. But look closer. Those opportunities are not arriving out of nowhere. They're the delayed rewards of years spent keeping promises, helping people without expecting immediate returns, learning skills no one required them to learn, showing up when others disappeared. The harvest finally arrived, but the seeds were planted long ago. The world remembers the harvest. It forgets the planting. Have you ever noticed that opportunity seems to travel through people? Rarely does it arrive as a random email from a stranger. More often it comes through a recommendation, a conversation, a former colleague, a mentor, a friend who remembers your name months, or even years after you helped them. That's because opportunities move through trust, and trust moves through relationships. This is why every interaction matters. The person you're helping today may introduce you to someone who changes your life 5 years from now, not because they owe you, because you become memorable. Generosity has a strange way of expanding your world. Every person you genuinely help becomes another bridge to opportunities you cannot yet imagine. Not every bridge will lead somewhere, but you only need one to change the direction of your life. There's another reason successful people appear fortunate. They take more chances, not reckless chances, prepared chances. Imagine two people standing before the same opportunity. One thinks, "What if I fail?" The other asks, "What if this changes everything?" Both feel fear. The difference is that one has practiced acting despite it. Confidence isn't the absence of uncertainty. It's the willingness to move anyway. Every meaningful opportunity contains uncertainty. If success were guaranteed, everyone would pursue it. Its uncertainty is precisely what makes it valuable. Prepared people don't wait until fear disappears. They build enough confidence that fear no longer controls their decisions. Now imagine your future self 5 years from today. The opportunities you hope for have finally arrived. The dream client reaches out. The investor schedules the meeting. The publisher asks for your manuscript. The company offers you the leadership position. The question is no longer, will the opportunity come? The question becomes, will the person I am today be ready when it does? That question changes everything. Instead of hoping for better circumstances, you begin becoming a better candidate for those circumstances. Instead of chasing success, you prepare for success. Preparation is an act of faith. You're investing in a future that hasn't arrived yet, trusting that today's invisible effort will eventually become tomorrow's visible opportunity. This leads us to one final shift in perspective. Stop asking, where are the opportunities? Instead ask, what kind of person do opportunities naturally look for? Do they look for someone who keeps learning? Someone who communicates clearly? Someone who solves problems without complaining? Someone who can be trusted? Someone who lifts the people around them? Become that person, and your life begins to change in subtle ways. People start remembering your name. Your phone rings more often. Introductions become easier. Recommendations multiply. Doors begin opening before you even knock. Not because the world suddenly became generous, because you become someone worth inviting inside. The wealth magnet effect isn't mystical. It isn't positive thinking. It isn't hoping the universe rewards good intentions. It's something much more practical. When you consistently create value, when you make that value visible, when you earn trust, when you build rare skills, when you protect your reputation, when you prepare long before opportunity appears, you become magnetic. Not everyone, but to the right people. And those are the only people who matter, because opportunities are not searching for perfect people. They're searching for prepared people. The remarkable truth is this: the more you become the person your future requires, the less you have to chase your future. Eventually, your future begins chasing you. And once opportunities begin finding you, Another question naturally arises. How do you turn a single conversation into a life-changing relationship? Because one meaningful connection can accomplish what years of working alone never could. That is where we're going next. Chapter 6. The 4 conversations that can change your financial future. Throughout this audiobook, one truth has quietly revealed itself again and again. Money is rarely the beginning of success. People are. Every opportunity we've discussed, the dream job, the unexpected promotion, the business partnership, the life-changing introduction, has one thing in common. A conversation happened first. Before every investment, someone talked. Before every company was built, someone shared an idea. Before every partnership, 2 people decided to trust each other. It's easy to believe that wealth is built through spreadsheets, business plans, and bank accounts. But long before wealth becomes financial, it is relational. Human beings have always exchanged more than money. We exchange ideas, trust, knowledge, encouragement, perspective. The greatest fortunes in history were rarely built in complete isolation. They were built through conversations that changed how people thought and what they believed was possible. The remarkable thing is that these conversations don't require extraordinary intelligence. They require intentionality. Most conversations remain on the surface. They begin with small talk and end with forgotten words. But every so often, a conversation changes the direction of a life. The difference isn't luck. It's knowing how to have the conversations that matter. Today, we'll explore 4 conversations that have quietly shaped the careers of entrepreneurs, leaders, artists, and innovators around the world. None of them require wealth. None require status. Only curiosity, generosity, and courage. Conversation 1. Ask for advice, not opportunity. Most people approach successful individuals with one question quietly hidden beneath everything they say. Can you help me? It's understandable. Everyone wants an opportunity. Everyone wants a shortcut. Everyone hopes someone influential will open a door. But here's the problem. Important people hear this every day. They're constantly asked for jobs, investments, introductions, recommendations. After a while, the requests all sound the same. Now imagine approaching the same person differently. Instead of asking, "Can you give me a chance?" you ask, "If you were starting over today, what would you do differently?" Everything changes. Advice is easier to give than opportunity. People enjoy sharing lessons they've learned. It reminds them of their own journey. It communicates humility rather than entitlement. More importantly, it reveals something about you. You're not merely looking for a handout. You're looking for wisdom. And wisdom is far more attractive than desperation. The irony is that genuine advice often becomes opportunity later. Because people remember those who listen. Most people collect opinions. Few people apply them. When someone sees that you've taken their advice seriously, they're far more likely to think of you when an opportunity appears. Advice builds relationships. Requests often end them. Years ago, a young entrepreneur met an experienced business owner after a conference. He could have asked for funding. Instead, he asked, "What's one mistake you made early that cost you years?" The older businessman smiled. They talked for 20 minutes. The conversation ended. Months later, when a position opened inside his company, the businessman remembered the young entrepreneur, not because he had begged for a chance, because he had demonstrated curiosity. Curiosity is memorable. Conversation 2. Offer value before you ask for anything. Imagine receiving 2 emails. The first says, "Can we meet? I'd love your help in my business." The second says, "I noticed your website has several broken links. I made a list and thought it might save your team some time." Which one would you remember? The second person asked for nothing, yet immediately created value. This is one of the simplest principles in building meaningful relationships. Become useful before becoming needy. Successful people constantly solve problems. When someone unexpectedly helps solve one, they stand out. Offering value doesn't always require expertise. Sometimes it means sharing an article relevant to someone's work, introducing 2 people who should know each other, volunteering your skills, providing honest feedback, celebrating another person's success, listening carefully when everyone else wants to speak. Value isn't measured by size. It's measured by usefulness. The people who consistently improve other people's lives become difficult to forget. Eventually, opportunities become a natural response rather than something requested. Think of every interaction as planting a seed. Not every seed grows immediately. Some remain invisible for years. But generosity has a remarkable memory. The world often returns value long after you've forgotten giving it. Conversation 3. Ask better questions. Most people believe impressive conversations come from impressive answers. The opposite is often true. Remarkable conversations begin with remarkable questions. Questions reveal curiosity. Questions build trust. Questions uncover opportunities hidden beneath ordinary conversation. Imagine asking someone, "What do you do?" You'll receive a predictable answer. Now ask, "What's the most exciting challenge you're working on right now?" Notice the difference. Energy changes. Stories emerge. Passion appears. Or consider asking, "What goal are you pursuing that most people don't know about?" Suddenly, the conversation becomes personal, meaningful, memorable. People enjoy talking with those who genuinely want to understand them, because genuine curiosity is surprisingly rare. Too many conversations become waiting contests. One person speaks while the other prepares their next sentence. Few people truly listen. Yet listening may be the highest paying communication skill in the world, because people reveal opportunities while they're talking. A business problem, an unmet need, a shared interest, a future project. If you're only waiting to speak, you'll miss them. The best negotiators ask questions. The best leaders ask questions. The best mentors ask questions. Questions create understanding, and understanding creates possibility. There's another hidden benefit. Every thoughtful question teaches you something. Imagine asking 10 successful business owners the same question. If you had to rebuild your career from zero, what skill would you master first? Their answers may differ, but patterns begin to appear. You start learning in hours what might otherwise take years. Questions compress experience. Every meaningful answer becomes borrowed wisdom, and borrowed wisdom is often far less expensive than personal mistakes. Conversation 4. Create collaborations, not competition. Many people believe success is a race. If someone else wins, they assume there's less left for everyone else. That's scarcity thinking. But as we explored earlier, abundance sees the world differently. It asks, how can we create something neither of us could build alone? Collaboration has always been one of the greatest wealth multipliers. One person brings ideas. Another brings experience. Someone else brings relationships. Together, the outcome becomes larger than the sum of its parts. Think about the world's most successful companies. Rarely were they built by one individual. Think about best-selling books, popular podcasts, groundbreaking discoveries, innovative businesses. Behind almost every great achievement is collaboration. The person you see may be the face, but behind them are editors, designers, mentors, partners, friends, teams. Success is rarely a solo performance. Imagine 2 photographers living in the same city. One sees the other as competition, protects every contact, keeps every idea secret, celebrates only personal success. The second photographer thinks differently. They share referrals when fully booked, recommend talented colleagues, collaborate on larger projects, exchange ideas. A few years later, who has the stronger network? Who receives more recommendations? Who enjoys greater trust? Competition creates limits. Collaboration creates expansion. The most successful people don't ask, "How do I beat everyone?" They ask, "Who can I build something extraordinary with?" As you reflect on these 4 conversations, you may notice something surprising. None of them begin with money. They begin with character, humility, generosity, curiosity, collaboration. These qualities seem soft, but they create incredibly hard results, because people open doors for those they trust, not merely those with impressive resumes. Think about your own life. One conversation introduced you to a close friend. Another changed your career. Another encouraged you when you want to quit. Words have always been among the world's most valuable currencies. The right sentence, spoken to the right person, at the right moment, can alter an entire future. So here's a challenge. Over the next month, don't measure success by how many business cards you collect or how many followers you gain. Measure it by 4 conversations. One person you ask for genuine advice. One person you help without expecting anything in return. One conversation where you ask extraordinary questions. And one relationship where you choose collaboration over competition. Those 4 conversations may not change your life tomorrow, but years from now, you may look back and realize they quietly changed everything, because opportunities rarely arrive announced. They often begin as ordinary conversations that only later reveal how extraordinary they truly were. And once you've learned how to build relationships that create opportunity, a bigger question emerges. How do you stop simply making a living and begin building a life that reflects your deepest ambitions? That is the foundation of the next chapter. Chapter 7, The Trap of Easy Money. By now, we've built a powerful foundation. You've learned that wealth begins with value, not effort alone. That your identity shapes your financial future. That opportunities favor preparation. And that conversations and relationships often become the bridges to prosperity. But every worthwhile journey has obstacles, not the obvious ones, the dangerous ones, the ones that promise to make the journey easier. Every generation has been offered the same temptation. Get rich quickly. Different names, different products, different technologies, but always the same promise. You can skip the process. It sounds irresistible. Who would want success without struggle? Wealth without waiting? Freedom without sacrifice? Yet history tells a remarkably consistent story. The faster money arrives, the harder it often becomes to keep, because earning money and managing money are 2 entirely different skills, and shortcuts rarely teach either. Imagine planting a tree. One gardener patiently waters it every day, protects it through storms, waits as roots slowly spread beneath the surface. Another gardener becomes impatient. He pulls on the trunk every morning, hoping to make it grow faster. Both desire the same outcome. Only one understands growth. Real wealth behaves like the first tree. Slow, invisible, steady. Its greatest strength develops underground, long before anyone notices it. The world celebrates the fruit. It forgets the roots. Easy money offers fruit without roots, and fruit without roots never lasts. This explains something psychologists have observed for decades. Lottery winners often imagine that one ticket will solve every problem. They picture freedom, luxury, a fresh beginning. And for a brief moment, it often feels exactly that way. But something unexpected happens. Many spend rapidly. Relationships become strained. Pressure increases. Financial stress returns. Sometimes even worse than before. Why? Because money changed faster than identity. Remember what we learned in Chapter 2. Your identity determines your income. It also determines your ability to keep it. If someone has never learned patience, more money amplifies impatience. If someone avoids difficult financial decisions, more money creates bigger decisions to avoid. If someone measures self-worth through possessions, more money simply funds larger purchases. Money magnifies habits. It rarely transforms them. That's why financial education is more valuable than financial windfalls. A person who learns to create wealth can lose everything and often rebuild. Someone who only receives wealth may lose everything and never understand why. This is also why fast success can become a hidden trap. Think about the entrepreneurs, athletes, entertainers, or online creators who become famous almost overnight. From the outside, it looks like a dream. Millions of followers, huge contracts, instant recognition. But behind the scenes, something very different is happening. Their external success grows faster than their internal capacity. Suddenly, they must make decisions they were never prepared for, handle criticism they never expected, manage wealth they've never experienced, lead teams they never learned to lead. Some adapt, many don't. Success arrived before wisdom had time to catch up. The problem isn't rapid success itself. The problem is when character develops slower than circumstances. Because every new level of success demands a new version of you. Nowhere is this illusion stronger than on social media. Every day, millions of people scroll through carefully edited moments, luxury vacations, expensive cars, designer clothes, perfect offices, private jets, early retirements. The message is subtle but powerful. Everyone else is getting rich faster than you. But social media rarely shows the debt behind the car, the failed businesses behind the successful one, the anxiety behind the smiling photo, or the years of invisible work behind the overnight success. Comparison has always existed. Social media simply turned it into a 24-hour broadcast, and comparison quietly changes your financial decisions. You stop asking, "What's right for my future?" and begin asking, "What will make me look successful today?" That single shift is incredibly expensive because appearances consume wealth, assets create it. One impresses strangers, the other builds freedom. The two are rarely the same. Imagine two neighbors. The first buys a luxury car the moment they receive a raise. A larger house follows. Then expensive holidays, designer clothing. Every increase in income is immediately matched by an increase in spending. The second neighbor receives the same raise, but instead of expanding their lifestyle immediately, they expand their investments. They continue living comfortably below their means. 10 years later, the first neighbor appears wealthier. The second neighbor actually is. This is one of the least glamorous truths about wealth. Freedom often looks ordinary. Real wealth is frequently quiet. Because wealthy people buy assets. People try to appear wealthy by symbols. Economists call this lifestyle inflation, but you don't need an economics degree to understand it. Lifestyle inflation simply means your expenses rise every time your income rises. A larger paycheck becomes permission for a larger lifestyle. Soon, what once felt luxurious becomes normal. The excitement fades. The payments remain. Then another raise arrives. Another upgrade follows. The cycle repeats. Notice what never changes. The feeling that you still need just a little more. Because the finish line keeps moving. This is why people earning 5 times more than they did 10 years ago sometimes feel no more financially secure. Their income grew. Their expectations grew faster. Without realizing it, they built a more expensive version of the same financial prison. Perhaps this explains why so many fortunes disappear. History is filled with people who earned extraordinary amounts of money. Professional athletes, musicians, actors, entrepreneurs, lottery winners, business owners. Some accumulated millions, only to lose almost everything. It wasn't always because they lacked intelligence. Often they lacked systems, discipline, perspective, and, perhaps most importantly, the identity capable of sustaining wealth. Making money is an event. Keeping money is a habit. Growing money is a discipline. Passing money to the next generation is wisdom. Each stage requires a different version of yourself. This brings us back to the central lesson of this audiobook. Money is never the destination. It is the byproduct. The byproduct of becoming valuable, becoming trustworthy, building meaningful relationships, developing rare skills, creating opportunities for others. Those qualities cannot be won in a lottery. They cannot be downloaded overnight. They cannot be purchased. They must be earned. And that's precisely why they last. So the next time you hear someone promise effortless wealth, pause. Ask yourself a different question. Will this help me become the kind of person who can build wealth repeatedly? Because temporary riches can be given. Lasting wealth must be grown. And growth has always followed the same rhythm. Slow enough to build wisdom. Steady enough to build character. Consistent enough to build freedom. The people who understand this no longer envy shortcuts. They understand that the long road often becomes the shortest path to a life that lasts. And that realization leads us naturally to the next chapter. Because if the greatest investment isn't a lottery ticket, a luxury purchase, or the latest trend, then where should you invest first? The answer is simpler than most people imagine. The greatest investment you'll ever make is in the person looking back at you in the mirror. Chapter 8. Investing in the person who earns. Throughout this audiobook, we've challenged many of the beliefs people hold about money. We discovered that wealth begins with value, that your identity shapes your income, that opportunities seek prepared people, that relationships often create greater returns in transactions. And in the last chapter, we uncover the danger of chasing easy money instead of becoming the kind of person who can create lasting wealth. Now we arrive at perhaps the most important investment you'll ever make. Not a stock, not a business, not real estate, not cryptocurrency, not even your retirement account. Those investments can be valuable, but every one of them depends on something even more valuable: the person making the investment. Imagine someone handed you a machine capable of producing $1 million over the next 20 years. How carefully would you protect it? You'd maintain it, upgrade it, repair it, never abuse it. Now consider this. You already own such a machine. It's you, your mind, your body, your skills, your relationships, your ability to solve problems, your ability to create value. Everything you've earned and everything you will ever earn flows through one asset, yourself, which means your greatest investment isn't the money you put into the market. It's the person producing the money. Think about two investors. The first spends hundreds of hours studying the stock market. They know every trend, every chart, every forecast, but they neglect their communication, ignore their health, stop learning, avoid difficult conversations. The second investor certainly invests financially, but every year they also become a better communicator, a better leader, a healthier thinker, a stronger negotiator. They continue reading, learning, growing. 20 years later, who has the greater earning potential? The second person, because markets rise and fall. Skills continue paying. The greatest return isn't always found inside your portfolio. It's found inside your personal growth. Let's begin with one of the highest paying skills in the modern world: communication. Nearly every opportunity in your life will eventually depend on your ability to communicate. Ideas don't change the world. Communicated ideas do. A brilliant employee may remain unnoticed because they struggle to explain their thinking. An average entrepreneur may build a remarkable business simply because they inspire people to believe in a vision. Communication is how value travels. Imagine you invent a life-changing solution, but no one understands it. Its value remains trapped inside your mind. Now imagine explaining the same idea so clearly that people immediately recognize its importance. Nothing changed except your communication. Yet everything changed. The highest paid people in almost every profession share one common ability. They reduce confusion. Whether they're doctors, teachers, lawyers, leaders, consultants, or entrepreneurs. People trust those who communicate with clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates opportunity. Next comes negotiation. Many people think negotiation only happens inside boardrooms. In reality, life is a series of negotiations. Negotiating your salary, your responsibilities, your schedule, business partnerships, deadlines, expectations, even family decisions. Every time you accept less than your value because you're afraid to ask, you quietly negotiate against yourself. The best negotiators aren't aggressive. They're curious. They seek understanding before agreement. They listen before speaking. They ask thoughtful questions. They create outcomes where both people leave feeling respected. Negotiation isn't about winning. It's about creating value that didn't exist before the conversation began. Learning this one skill can increase your lifetime earnings more than almost any financial investment, because one conversation can change the trajectory of decades. Then there is emotional intelligence, perhaps the most underestimated wealth-building skill of all. You can possess extraordinary intelligence, but if you cannot manage frustration, handle criticism, build trust, resolve conflict, or understand people, your knowledge eventually reaches a ceiling. Success has always been deeply human. People invest in people, hire people, follow people, recommend people. Emotional intelligence determines how well you navigate those relationships. Imagine two equally talented leaders. One reacts emotionally to every disagreement. The other remains calm, listens, responds thoughtfully. creates psychological safety? Which leader attracts stronger teams? Which leader retains better employees? Which leader earns greater trust? The difference isn't IQ. It's emotional maturity. Your emotional habits quietly shape your financial future. Now let's talk about something many people sacrifice while chasing wealth. Their health. It's one of life's great paradoxes. People spend years sacrificing their health to build financial security, only to spend their financial security trying to recover their health. Your body is a vehicle carrying every ambition you have. Without energy, skills become harder to use. Ideas become slower. Creativity fades. Patience disappears. Health isn't separate from wealth. It's the foundation beneath it. Sleep sharpens judgment. Exercise strengthens resilience. Good nutrition improves concentration. Recovery protects consistency. The goal isn't simply living longer. It's maintaining the energy to create meaningful work throughout your life, because opportunities often arrive unexpectedly, and exhausted people frequently lack the energy to recognize them. This leads naturally to another lifelong investment: reading. Books are among the few places where decades of experience can be transferred in a matter of hours. Imagine sitting beside someone who spent 30 years building a business, 30 years making mistakes, learning lessons, solving problems. For the price of a single book, you gain access to their thinking. That's an extraordinary exchange. Reading expands more than knowledge. It expands perspective. It introduces ideas your current environment may never expose you to. Every book quietly changes the conversations happening inside your own mind. Some books teach strategy. Others teach courage. Some challenge assumptions you've carried for years. Reading doesn't merely add information. It upgrades the operating system we discussed earlier. And upgraded thinking almost always produces upgraded decisions. But knowledge alone is never enough. Learning must become a lifestyle. The most successful people rarely believe they've arrived. They remain students, no matter how accomplished they become. Notice something remarkable. The people who grow the fastest are often those most willing to admit what they don't know. Curiosity keeps them moving. Ego keeps others standing still. The moment you believe you've learned enough, growth quietly begins slowing. The world changes too quickly for fixed thinking. Industries evolve. Technology advances. Markets transform. The people who continue learning don't fear change. They adapt before change becomes necessary. Learning isn't preparation for life. It is life. All these investments lead to something invisible but priceless. Energy. Not just physical energy, mental energy, creative energy, emotional energy. Every decision you make either creates energy or drains it. The relationships you maintain, the food you eat, the conversations you tolerate, the media you consume, the habits you repeat, they all either recharge you or slowly exhaust you. High performers understand something many overlook. Time isn't their most valuable resource. Energy is. Two people can have the same 24 hours. The one with greater energy almost always creates greater value. Protect your energy the way others protect their investments, because energy determines the quality of your thinking, and the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life. Imagine your future self 10 years from today. Someone asks them, "What was your greatest investment?" Perhaps they don't mention a stock that doubled or a property that appreciated. Perhaps they simply smile and say, "I invested in becoming someone capable of creating value wherever I went." Because markets can crash, companies can fail, currencies can lose value, technology can become obsolete, but someone who knows how to communicate, who leads with emotional intelligence, who negotiates wisely, who continues learning, who protects their health, who maintains their energy, can rebuild almost anything. That person carries wealth within them, not merely around them. This is why true financial freedom begins long before financial independence. It begins when you realize that you are not simply earning income. You are becoming the person who produces that income. And every improvement you make to that person creates returns that compound for the rest of your life. Because the greatest asset you will ever own isn't listed on a balance sheet. It wakes up with you every morning, looks back at you in the mirror, and determines, more than any investment ever could, the size of the future you're capable of creating. In the next chapter, we'll discover something that seems almost paradoxical: why giving more often leads to receiving more, and how generosity, when practiced with wisdom, becomes one of the most powerful forces behind lasting abundance. Chapter 9. Why Generosity Makes You Richer. We've spent much of this audiobook talking about creating value, building rare skills, strengthening your reputation, investing in yourself, preparing for opportunities before they arrive. All of these ideas point toward one surprising conclusion. The people who build lasting wealth often spend less time asking, "What can I get?" and far more time asking, "What can I give?" At first, this sounds like terrible financial advice. If your goal is wealth, shouldn't you protect your time, guard your knowledge, focus on your own success? It seems logical. Yet when you study the lives of people who create extraordinary influence, not just financial wealth, but meaningful wealth, you begin to notice a different pattern. The most successful people are often extraordinarily generous, not because they became wealthy, but because generosity became part of how they created wealth. This doesn't mean giving everything away. It doesn't mean allowing people to take advantage of you. It means understanding a simple truth. The world has a remarkable way of remembering those who consistently create value for others. Imagine two professionals entering the same industry. The first guards every idea, keeps every contact private, shares only when there's something immediate to gain. The second introduces people who should know one another, offers helpful advice, celebrates the success of others, shares useful resources, mentors newcomers. Neither person expects immediate rewards. 5 years later, whose phone rings more often, whose name comes up in important conversations, who receives unexpected referrals? The second person. Not because generosity is magic, because generosity creates memory. People rarely forget those who made their lives easier. This principle has existed long before modern business. It is known as reciprocity. When someone helps us sincerely, something inside us naturally wants to respond, not because we feel forced, because gratitude creates movement. Think about a teacher who believed in you before anyone else did. Years later, you probably still remember them. You speak about them with respect. You recommend them. You carry their influence into rooms they may never enter. That's reciprocity. Its greatest rewards are often delayed. But delayed doesn't mean absent. There's an old story about a young musician struggling to find work. Every evening, instead of rushing home after performances, he stayed behind. He helped pack equipment, thanked the sound engineers, introduced himself to venue staff, helped younger musicians carry instruments. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply believed in leaving every place slightly better than he found it. Years passed. When opportunities appeared, people remembered him. A concert organizer recommended him. A producer introduced him to another artist. A venue owner offered him a larger stage. People later called him lucky, but his luck had names: kindness, reliability, generosity. The opportunities didn't appear from nowhere. They traveled through people who never forgot how he made them feel. This is why reputation and generosity are inseparable. In earlier chapters, we learned that your reputation is what people say about you when you leave the room. Generosity gives people something worth saying. Imagine someone describing you. What would they say? They're incredibly talented. That's good. They're successful. Also good. But imagine hearing this instead. Whenever I needed help, they showed up. They introduced me to someone who changed my career. They expected nothing in return. Those words create something stronger than admiration. They create trust. And trust travels. The remarkable thing about reputation is that you cannot build it by talking about yourself. Other people build it for you. Every generous action becomes another story someone else tells. Eventually, those stories begin opening doors you've never knocked on. Now think about your network. Many people imagine a network as a list of contacts, business cards, phone numbers, social media connections. But a true network is something much deeper. It is a web of genuine relationships built on mutual respect. The strongest networks are not built through collecting people. They're built through caring about people. Imagine planting seeds across a field. Some grow immediately. Some take years. Some never grow at all. Yet you continue planting. Not because every seed succeeds. Because enough eventually do. Relationships work the same way. Every person you encourage. Every honest compliment. Every thoughtful introduction. Every problem you help solve. Every moment of generosity. Another seed. Most won't produce immediate results. Some will quietly change your future years later. This reminds me of another story. A young software developer volunteered to teach coding at a local community center every Saturday. He wasn't paid. There were no cameras, no audience, no promise that anything would come from it. He simply enjoyed helping people learn. One of his students happened to be the teenage daughter of a startup founder. Years later, when the company was expanding, she remembered the patient teacher who had encouraged her when she doubted herself. She recommended him. He was hired. Eventually, he became a senior executive. People later admired his career. Very few knew it began in a classroom where no one expected anything in return. Sometimes the greatest opportunities arrive disguised as acts of service. One of the greatest misunderstandings about helping others is the belief that generosity reduces what you have. In reality, generosity often expands what you become. Every time you teach, your own understanding deepens. Every time you encourage someone, your own perspective strengthens. Every time you solve another person's problem, you sharpen your own ability to solve bigger ones. Giving doesn't always subtract. Often it multiplies, not just externally, internally. You become more patient, more trusted, more respected, more connected. Those qualities eventually become financial assets because people prefer working with those who genuinely care about their success. There's another reason generosity is so powerful. It makes you unforgettable. Think back over your own life. Who do you remember most clearly? Probably not the smartest person, or the richest, or the most accomplished. You remember the person who helped you when they didn't have to, the manager who believed in you, the teacher who stayed after class, the friend who introduced you to someone important, the stranger who gave advice that changed your direction. Human beings are wired to remember generosity, not because of what was given, because of how it made us feel. That emotional memory lasts far longer than almost anything money can buy. This doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Healthy generosity requires wisdom. It means helping without abandoning your own responsibilities, giving without expecting immediate repayment, serving without losing yourself. The healthiest generosity comes from abundance, not guilt, not obligation, not the hope of manipulating outcomes. Its reward is found in becoming the kind of person others naturally trust. As we approach the end of this audiobook, perhaps you'll notice that wealth has become something much bigger than numbers. Yes, money matters. It creates options, freedom, security, the ability to care for the people you love. But lasting wealth also includes something far less visible. A life filled with meaningful relationships, a reputation built on integrity, a network built on service, a legacy carried forward through people whose lives became better because you were part of them. That is a form of wealth no market crash can erase. So here's a question worth asking yourself. If people forgot everything you owned, everything you earned, everything you accomplished, what would they remember about how you made them feel? Because in the end, the people who become truly unforgettable rarely spend their lives trying to be remembered. They spend their lives making sure others never regret meeting them. And strangely enough, those are often the very people that success remembers too. In our final chapter, we'll bring everything together by exploring the greatest transformation of all. Not how to earn more money, but how to become the kind of person for whom wealth, opportunity, and fulfillment become a natural consequence of who they are. Chapter 10, Designing a Wealth Identity. We've reached the end of this journey, but perhaps you've already realized this was never really a book about money. Money simply brought us here. What we've actually explored is something much deeper. We've explored the kind of person who naturally creates wealth. Along the way, we challenge the belief that hard work alone guarantees success. We uncover the hidden stories about money that that quietly shape our decisions. We discover that value, visibility, and trust create income. We learn why opportunities seek prepared people, why meaningful conversations change lives, why shortcuts often become the longest road, why your greatest investment is yourself, and why generosity creates a form of wealth that no market can measure. Each chapter pointed toward one central truth. Wealth is rarely an event. It is an identity. For most of their lives, people ask the wrong question. How do I make more money? It seems like a reasonable question, but it places all of your attention on the outcome. Imagine asking, how do I become healthier? Without changing how you eat, how you sleep, how you think, or how you move, nothing changes. The better question is, who becomes the kind of person who naturally lives a healthy life? Money works the same way. Instead of asking, how do I make more money? Ask yourself, who becomes a person that naturally earns more? Notice how different those questions feel. The first searches for a shortcut. The second begins a transformation. One asks for results. The other asks for growth. And growth is where lasting wealth begins. Everything you've learned in this audiobook can be understood through one simple progression. Identity creates habits. Habits build skills. Skills shape reputation. Reputation creates wealth. It always begins with identity. If you believe you're someone who constantly learns, you'll naturally read more. If you believe you're someone who keeps promises, discipline becomes easier. If you believe you're someone who creates value, you'll begin looking for problems to solve. Each identity quietly produces habits. Those habits eventually become automatic. Over months and years, habits become skills. Communication improves. Leadership strengthens. Judgment becomes sharper. Confidence grows. Then something remarkable happens. People begin noticing. They recommend you, trust you, invite you into opportunities. That's your reputation forming. And over time, reputation becomes one of the greatest economic assets you'll ever own. Because people invest in certainty, your reputation becomes that certainty. Eventually, wealth follows. Not because you chased it, but because everything before it made it almost inevitable. Imagine two builders constructing identical houses. One begins by decorating the walls, choosing furniture, hanging artwork. The other starts with a foundation. Months later, a storm arrives. One house collapses. The other remains standing. Most people build wealth from the outside in. They focus on appearances, income, status, possessions. But lasting wealth is built from the inside out. Identity is the foundation. Everything else rests upon it. Without it, success becomes fragile. With it, setbacks become temporary. Because even if circumstances change, your identity remains. And identity always finds a way to rebuild. Perhaps that's why some people lose everything, only to build it again. At first glance, it seems unbelievable. But they didn't lose the most valuable thing they owned. They kept their thinking, their discipline, their communication, their relationships, their ability to solve problems. They carried their true wealth within themselves. Money simply found its way back. The opposite is also true. Someone may inherit enormous wealth, but without the identity capable of managing it, the money eventually disappears. Because wealth can never permanently live where the person is not prepared to sustain it. Think back to the very first sentence of this audiobook. Money is rarely chasing people who spend their lives chasing it. Now, perhaps those words mean something entirely different. You no longer need to chase what naturally follows value. You no longer need to force opportunities when you become someone prepared for them. You no longer need to compare your journey with everyone else's. Because you're no longer building an income, you're building a person. And that person becomes the source of every future opportunity. There will still be setbacks. There will still be rejection, unexpected expenses, difficult seasons, moments when progress feels invisible. Don't mistake those moments for failure. Remember the tree from earlier in this journey. For a long time, its greatest growth happened beneath the surface. The roots deepened before the branches expanded. Your life works the same way. Every book you read, every promise you keep, every difficult conversation you have, every new skill you develop, every person you help, every act of integrity, every moment you choose growth over comfort. Another route, invisible today, unmistakable tomorrow. One day, someone may look at your life and say, "You're lucky." They'll see the opportunities, the freedom, the confidence, the financial security. What they won't see are the years spent quietly becoming the person capable of receiving those things. They'll admire the fruit. You'll remember the roots. So as this audiobook comes to an end, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Every morning, before you check your bank account, before you open your email, before you begin chasing another goal, ask yourself one simple question. Who am I becoming today? Because every decision answers that question. Every habit casts another vote. Every conversation shapes the person you're becoming. And that person, far more than any investment, far more than any paycheck, far more than any market, will determine the life you eventually live. Money can buy comfort. It can buy convenience. It can even buy freedom. But only character can sustain them. Only wisdom can multiply them. And only identity can turn temporary success into a lifetime of abundance. So don't spend your life chasing wealth. Spend your life becoming the kind of person that wealth naturally follows. Because in the end, the greatest fortune you will ever build is not the one sitting in your bank account. It's the person you become while creating it. And once no one can take that person away from you, you are already richer than you ever imagined. Ending the invisible fortune. Before we part, I'd like you to do something. For just a moment, forget your bank balance. Forget your salary. Forget your debts. Forget the financial goals you've been carrying around for years. Forget everything you've been taught to measure. Now ask yourself a different question. Who have I become because of the life I've lived so far? Because after everything we've explored together, perhaps that's the only question that truly matters. This audiobook was never about becoming rich overnight. It was never about finding a secret investment or discovering a shortcut that everyone else missed. Those promises are easy to sell because they appeal to impatience. But you've learned something much more valuable. You've learned that the greatest fortune isn't built in a bank. It's built in a person. Think back to where we began. We started with one simple sentence. Money is rarely chasing people who spend their lives chasing it. At first, it sounded almost impossible. How could someone stop chasing money and still become financially successful? Now you know, because you've seen what comes before money. Value, identity, character, preparation, trust, relationships, generosity, learning, discipline. These are the invisible foundations beneath every visible fortune. Money simply reveals what was already there. A magnificent building doesn't begin with windows. It begins with foundations buried deep beneath the ground. No one applauds the concrete. No one photographs the steel beneath the earth. Yet, without those invisible pieces, nothing above them can stand. Your life works exactly the same way. The conversations no one hears. The books no one sees you reading. The mornings you choose discipline over comfort. The promises you keep when no one is watching. The kindness you offer without expecting recognition. The courage to continue after rejection. The patience to grow while others search for shortcuts. Those moments rarely receive applause, but they are the foundation upon which every meaningful success is built. One day, years from now, someone may ask you, how did you become successful? You could tell them about the promotion, the business, the investment, the opportunity. But if you were completely honest, you would probably tell them about something much quieter. The day you stopped comparing yourself to everyone else. The day you started reading instead of scrolling. The day you learned to listen more than you spoke. The day you chose consistency over excitement. The day you began serving instead of impressing. The day you understood that your greatest investment wasn't a financial one. It was becoming someone worth trusting. Because that's the day your future truly changed. Even if no one noticed. There's a beautiful truth about abundance that many people never discover. Abundance isn't attracted to desperation. It is attracted to responsibility. Think about it. You wouldn't trust an expensive instrument to someone who refuses to learn how to play it. You wouldn't hand the keys to a race car to someone who has never learned to drive. You wouldn't ask someone to lead others if they couldn't first lead themselves. Why should wealth be any different? Perhaps abundance isn't asking, does this person want more? Perhaps it's asking, can this person multiply what they've already been given? Can they turn knowledge into wisdom, opportunity into service, income into freedom, success into significance? Because true wealth always multiplies, not only for the person who possesses it, but for everyone whose life it touches. Remember something we discovered earlier. Money magnifies. It doesn't transform. If you're generous before wealth, you'll likely become more generous after wealth. If you're grateful before success, success deepens your gratitude. If you're constantly learning while earning little, you'll continue learning while earning much. Your future is rarely created by a single moment. It's created by thousands of ordinary decisions repeated long enough to become extraordinary. As you leave this audiobook, don't feel pressure to change everything overnight. That was never the goal. Great lives aren't built in dramatic moments. They're built in ordinary mornings. The book you decide to read, the difficult phone call you finally make, the skill you begin learning, the promise you choose to keep, the person you decide to encourage. One small decision, repeated often enough, becomes a different life. There will be days when progress feels invisible, days when it seems like everyone else is moving faster, days when doubt whispers that none of this is working. When those days come, remember the tree. For months, sometimes years, its greatest growth happens underground. The roots deepen long, before anyone notices the branches. No one celebrates roots until the storm comes. Then everyone understands why they mattered. Build roots. The branches will arrive in time. So let me leave you with 4 truths that I hope stay with you long after this audiobook ends. Wealth begins long before money appears. Every lasting fortune is first built through invisible choices. Your habits, your character, your discipline, and your willingness to create value long before anyone notices. Every dollar you've ever earned was first created in someone's mind. Before money changes hands, someone imagines a solution. Someone solves a problem. Someone creates something useful. Ideas become value. Value becomes trust. Trust becomes opportunity. Opportunity becomes income. Everything begins in the mind before it appears in the marketplace. The question isn't whether you deserve abundance. Life doesn't distribute opportunities according to who wants them most. It responds to preparation, to usefulness, to integrity, to the ability to create value for others. The question is whether you become the kind of person abundance can trust. Someone who keeps promises, who continues learning, who handles success with humility, who treats people with respect, who creates more than they consume, who leaves every room, every relationship, and every opportunity better than they found it. Become that person, and abundance rarely stays far away. So, tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, don't wake up asking, how can I make more money today? Wake up asking, how can I become more valuable than I was yesterday? How can I think more clearly, communicate more honestly, serve more generously, learn more deeply, lead more courageously, solve one more problem, encourage one more person, keep one more promise? Because every one of those choices is another investment in the person who creates your future. And that person is your greatest asset. Money has a strange habit. It often arrives when it is no longer the center of your life. When your attention shifts from earning to becoming, from consuming to creating, from proving yourself to improving yourself, from chasing success to becoming someone capable of sustaining it. That is the invisible fortune, not simply the wealth you accumulate, but the person you become while building it. And once you become that person, no recession can fully take it from you. No failure can permanently destroy it. No setback can erase it. Because true wealth is never stored only in your bank account. It is stored in your mind, your character, your habits, your relationships, and your identity. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. May you continue building a life where wealth is not measured only by what you own, but by the value you create, the lives you improve, and the person you become. Because in the end, the richest people are not those who have the most. They are the ones who have become the most.